Welcome to America's Top Rebbetzins. May this class be for Refuah Shalema for Sarah Bat Leah. I'm so excited to have on today's show Rebbetzin Chana Bracha Siegelbaum. Rebbetzin Chana Bracha is a founder and director of Midreshet B'erot Bat Ayin, holistic Torah study for women on the land. She holds a Bachelor of Education in Bible and Jewish Philosophy from Mechlala Jerusalem College for Women and a Master's of Art in Jewish History from Torah College. Rebbetzin Chana Bracha creates curricula emphasizing women's spiritual empowerment through traditional Torah values. In fact, Midreshet B'erot Bat Ayin has an interactive and inspiring online program coming up very, very soon. It's called Return to Your Roots. And December 1st, 2021 is the last day for the 25% off early bird registration for the program. Now, this particular program will help you connect personally to the deeper meaning of foundational Torah concepts and explore their spiritual ramifications. I will put a link for more information on this program on the podcast description. So thank you so much, Rebbetzin Chana Bracha, for being on our show today to talk about the Hebrew month of Tevet. All Hebrew months have a special power and energy. So please tell us about the Hebrew month of Tevet and all that it has in store for us.
Thank you so much, Vera. It's really nice to meet you. And thank you for that nice introduction. Straight to my bio. So I'm really happy to be with you here and talk to you about Tevet, because actually I give classes about each of the Hebrew months, and based on, first of all, the most ancient Kabbalah books that's called Sefer Yetzirah, the book of formation that some people attribute to Avraham Avinu, Avraham, our father. And so in the Sefer Yetzirah, each month has an organ, has a permutation of God's name, have a tribe, and what else does it? And a letter, a Hebrew letter that refers to that month. So based on that, I'm going to, expand with commentaries of Rav Tzadok of Lublin and the Bnei Yisachar, which some of you may be familiar with, on the, based on the Sefer Yetzirah. So the Sefer Yetzirah, it explains, first of all, the letter of the months of Tevet is the Ayin. The tribe is done. The sense, I forgot to say, there's also a sense of each month, but the senses are a little different than our regular 5 senses, because we have 12 months and there's, and we only have 5 senses. So the sense of this month is roges, which is similar to chaos, to anger. It means agitation, literally agitation. So I call this is the months of agitation. And basically the most important thing, in my opinion, that for all of us to take with us from today, and for myself too, for the months of Tevet, is how to transform the negative anger to or agitation to become a positive force that moves us forward in our service of Hashem, and that brings us to tshuva as well. That's really, I'm not going to give the recipe for that, but that's the question. I told you don't ask me too many questions. I'll ask the questions, and you can all think about the answers. How can we use that anger or agitation that comes up a lot in this month? And let's continue with the Sefer Yetzirah. So you think I could share the screen here? Let's see if I could. It looks like you gave me the ability. Do you see my screen here? Yeah, but I am. Okay, let me just change it to this one. Okay, so here we see all of text number 1 here is based on Sefer Yetzirah. The sense is roges, agitation. The organ is liver, the kaved, which fits perfectly with what Chazal teaches us, that I think I have you down a little bit more here, where it says, here, text number 9, I have scrolled down to it. The liver gets angry and the gallbladder injects in it a drop and calms it down. That's from the Gemara, Masechet Brachot. So going back up, so we see that the organ is synchronized with the sense of the months, the agitation. Mm-hmm. It's the liver that gets angry. And it's interesting because I like to put together Torah sources with general sources in the world. For example, I wrote the 7 books of the land of Israel, coming out now for Shvat, good one to get for how to conduct a Tu B'Shvat Seder. And there I took Torah teachings on the 7 fruits and synchronized them with medical, mystical, and medicinal properties of these 7 fruits of the land. And so here, what's interesting here about the liver getting angry, like the Talmud says in Brachot, it also synchronized with the Chinese medicine. And Chinese medicine teaches us that the seat of anger is in the liver.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that is really interesting how that goes together. And then the permutation, because there are 12 permutation, is the He Yud He Vav. So you see it's opposite. It's opposite of, instead of Yud He, it's He Yud. Instead of Vav He, it's He Vav. So this shows us that there are some challenges here. There's like, we are in judgment, a lot of judgment in this month. And we know that we have a fast day and the tribe is done, which means judgment. Because when you have the permutation of Hashem's name in a regular order, Yud and He and Vav and He, that's this name of God is the name that brings us chesed, kindness, and miracles. And that's, by the way, that's the name of Nisan. That's the permutation of the months of Nisan, where Hashem did the tremendous chesed of taking us out of Egypt, and everything is revelation. So the months of Tevet is a more hidden month. So that's where even more so we need to learn about it to reveal these hidden secrets of the months of Tevet. But that's, God is more hidden at this time. And that's what is expressed as judgment, or the opposite order of the letters, the permutation of God's name. The constellation is the Capricorn, the mountain goat, or in Hebrew, Gedi. And now, yeah, astrology is very much part of the Torah. For those of you who may not know that, including myself, before I came to Tshuva, because I'm about Tshuva of 41 years. And I was told when I went to the Jewish, not so religious Jewish school in Denmark, the only one, in case you wondered my accent, I thought I would throw that in. The only Jewish school in Denmark, I learned that astrology was, is against the Torah. But that's not necessarily true. It depends how you use it. But, the Midrash in Midreshet Chana has a whole thing about all the astrological signs of all the months. And actually, they're synchronized more to the Hebrew months. And, those of you who know a little bit about it, they always start in the middle of the Gregorian months. Yeah. Whereas in the Hebrew, it starts with it's actually the months of. So here we have the Capricorn, that's a mountain goat, that's a climber. So that's what we have to do in this month. We have to harness our climbing power and not give up. When things are dark, we have to, climb up to find that light in the end of the tunnel, but actually it's in the beginning of the tunnel. And that's the good thing about the months of, Tevet is that it starts off with Hanukkah.
Yes.
Even though it's a dark month, we have the 10th of Tevet, and it says that, the darkness was brought into the world when the Torah was translated into Greek, and Greece, amongst the 4 nations that exiled the Jewish people, Greece is the nation that is called darkness, choshech. And so there was darkness when the book of the Torah, when the Torah was translated into Greek, because it's missed so much. This is why I say, come to our online Midreshet, because you learn how to learn. Or come to our on-campus Midreshet, even better, because we sit with Chavuta tutors and we learn in Hebrew, because when everything is lost, so much is lost in translation.
Yes.
So much.
For sure.
There's so much more depths and layers. So it's so limited in translation. So that's the darkness. So much of the light was limited. But what I want to say is that the beginning, Rosh Chodesh Tevet falls in Hanukkah. So we have that light of Hanukkah that is so strong, and it's the end of Hanukkah. So we have so many lights then, and they have the power to illuminate the entire darkness of the months of Tevet.
That's so
And
beautiful.
like this month is the darkest and the beginning of the light. We have the winter solstice. If I pronounce it correctly, you can correct me.
Yes, the solstice. Yep.
Yes, that happens in the months of Tevet. And actually, there's a really interesting story. I don't know exactly. It's a midrash where I got it, but actually, yeah. So the last days of Hanukkah, the culmination, the 8th day, is called Zot Chanukah. That's in the beginning of the month of Tevet. Our holy sages tell us that after Adam ate from the tree of knowledge, the night started to grow longer and the days became shorter. So Adam was so afraid that, oh no, I brought this darkness into the world by sinning, by eating this fruit of the tree. When he noticed then that the days stopped getting shorter, Adam rejoiced and Adam rejoiced and feasted for 8 days. This is, the precursor to Hanukkah, obviously, but the months of Tevet together with Tammuz and Av, 3 days that we're fasting over the temple, these months were taken by Esav. So there's a whole thing about Yaakov and Esav having to share the months of the year. So in the end, Tevet has the power to return back to Yaakov, because Tevet is about making it good. That's the word Tevet means, from the word Tov, good. Anyway, but Tevet is still like considered Esav's months. So since this happened during Esav's months, that the day started to get longer, Adam's feast was taken over by brother Esav. Guess what that is about? Maybe you wondered why it is that during Hanukkah, the nations also have some of the nations have their holiday, and that is such a parody. They also have lights.
Yes.
They're trying to have some of the same, but they have it like in a warped way, completely warped way. But it's not by chance. That's the same time. It was, because that's also considered the months of Esa, whatever that means. But we're going to bring it back. So also Tevet begins the 3 months, winter months, which are Tevet, Shvat, Adar. They correspond to the 3 tribes that were situated in the north side of the camp, like winter, that's north. And north is also a place of darkness. Those were Dan, Asher, and Naphtali. Mm-hmm. So those 3 tribes were, Dan and Naphtali are from Bilhah, and Asher is from Zilpah. So none of them are from Rachel or Leah. Not to take lightly the holy maid servants. Right. I'm just mentioning that. So let's look a little bit more into the name of Tevet. And here we're going to see that this word is used in the, let's see here. It just takes so much extra time. We're going to try it just really quick to share the text. Number 2, Aharon shall make good the incense. So in Hebrew, not yet. And of spices go up in smoke every morning. And now comes the main thing that has to do with Tevet, Bahativo, when he makes good, or when he sets up the candles, he shall make it go up in smoke. So the main thing here is Bahativo, and which you see it's the same root as the word of Tevet. Mm-hmm. Hativo, it's the verb of Tevet. So, and it is the same root of Tov, good. So he's making good the candles. Literally, he's making good. But this is actually how you say to set up the candles, because the candles are always good. So setting them up is making them good. And this is how it's written in in text number 2 in the book of Shmot. I believe it's in Parshas. I believe it's in Parshas Tevet, in the end of Shmot. And this teaches us about the goodness that also is inherent in the months of Tevet, like Sfat Emet explains, that Rosh Chodesh Tevet is during Hanukkah. And that's why the lights of the candles illuminate all of the days of that month. For everything, the way it works in the world is that the body follows the head. So Rosh Chodesh is the head. The entire month follows its beginning. It's always the beginning. First impressions are so important. So I hope you're going to like me.
Oh, of course. Yeah, no, it's so interesting.
This is the first impression. It's possible to learn from the fact that we light 36 candles, that these candles, all throughout Hanukkah, we light 36 candles minus the shamash. Like that's the total of 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 7 plus 8. That you can check it out yourself. That makes up 36. And so if you, from the beginning of Hanukkah until the end of the month of Tevet, there's exactly 36 days. Isn't that cool? Wow. And so the Hanukkah candles light up all of Hanukkah plus the month, every day in the month of Tevet.
Amazing.
And so it's possible. So Tevet are the days, even though Tevet are the day when Hashem is hidden, though we have a principle in the Torah, which is Hashem Magdim Refuah Lemakah. Hashem always precede the healing to the wound. And so he preceded that healing of the Hanukkah candles that begin before the month of Tevet, and that's important. So the darkness of Tevet is like the wound. Hanukkah and the lights of Hanukkah is the healing. The healing comes first and is spilled into the darkness of Hanukkah. So that's all based on Sfat Emet for Hanukkah, year 5650. So I hope that was clear.
Yes.
And so now let's talk a little bit. Well, we talked already about the permutation. And so I'll move to the letter Ayin. And so what's the connection between the letter Ayin and what's going on during the months of Tevet? So first of all, there is Ayin is the numerical value of 70, which corresponds to the 70 facets of the Torah, which refers to the 70 possible ways of Torah interpretation. But it also has to do with the eye, because the months of Tevet, says Rav Yitzchak Ginsburg, has the ability to rectify the eye, the evil eye specifically. As we learn also in Mishnah, he who has a generous eye shall be blessed, for he gave of his bread to the poor. This is one of the things we need to do, work on in the months of Tevet, is to have an Ayin Tovah, to have a good eye, which is also translated as a generous eye, the opposite of a narrow eye, of Ayin Tzara or Ayin Hara. Mm-hmm. And so, since the word of Tevet comes from the word Tov, like it says, so we could put together the Ayin and the Tov. So we have like this month is all about working on giving an Ayin Tovah. The goodly eye shall bless. It's really important to use the energy of this month to bless, to look at the good, to notice the good. And the beginning of this rectification, which we could still do, and we have several days more to do so, is gazing at the Hanukkah candles, especially the last day, which is in the month of Tevet, when all the 8 candles are, igniting and illuminating, and it's so much light there. And also Sfat Emet says in another place, I think it's Sfat Emet, or maybe it's Rav Tzadik of Lublin. In any case, the most important is what's being said. And the saying is, if all throughout the year, which everybody, nobody can avoid using our eyes, not the very holiest way. Let's say we look at someone with jealous eyes, or we look at things that's really not something we should even see, which is not, with too curious of an eye. This is part of what Chava did in the Garden of Eden, when it says she saw that the tree was good for seeing. Like, she used also her eyes to sin by looking at the tree. Like, it was a beautiful sight. The tree was a beautiful sight. It was also good for eating and to make one wise, etc. But the point is that we cannot avoid sinning with our eyes. It says, don't go out after your heart and after your eyes. And so it's very hard to be completely pure of that. Especially like when seeing other people's gardens that are nicer than yours or something like that. Well, not if you live in Brooklyn, but if you live out in the countryside, but of Bat Ayin, where I live, that's a big challenge. And so I try, whenever I see something beautiful that belongs to other people, to give a blessing. Like, even if I'm not talking to anyone, I just mentally say, this is a beautiful garden, may it be blessed and continue. Sometimes I whisper it, to grow and prosper, or whatever I want to say. Anytime we see something beautiful, that we should not, God forbid, chas v'shalom, give out an ein hava.
That's very special. That's really smart. That's very, very special.
So whenever you see something that you may have a tendency to feel jealous at, just give a blessing. And that helps revert it. But then what I wanted to say is that whoever said it is that when you look at the Hanukkah candles, and really look at them, meditate on them, they rectify any sin we may have done with our eyes throughout the whole year.
Wow.
So that is so important, to take that auspicious time of Hanukkah and sit with the Hanukkah candles. Women are exempted, and women are not supposed to do work 30 minutes after lighting the candles. And that's why I'm saying I got to be at the candlelights, and thank you for making time to get up so early to do this podcast so early for you in America. Because even though you call me one of America's top Rebbetzins, that's only through the online program. Because I'm living here in Eretz Israel, and so we have afternoon, and I want to make sure not to miss the candlelight.
Definitely.
My husband lights and my son lights, and I sit there and look at the candles, and I also say the Tehillim, and that's one. And I don't want to be working, which this is called work for me. That's my work. I'm a teacher, so yeah. Okay, so let's go back and see what else we have time to glean out of Tevet. I know we won't get to everything. That's always like, that's really, really fine. Okay, so it's interesting. Like, this month is the month of agitation or anger, and the word for anger is ka'as, and the middle letter is ayin. So that negative ka'as, that negative anger, must be first rectified to its part and transformed to become its positive correspondent. So let's see, I have here a text from Rav Tzadok of Lublin. So he says that Tevet and Shvat, they correspond to Tammuz and Av. And if you know, like Tammuz, the organ is according to Sefer Yetzirah, is the eye. Av is the ear. So Tevet, which is the letter ayin, correspond to Tammuz, which is the organ of that month, is the eye. And ayin means eye. And those are the eyes of the king. There's two eyes. And so these 2 months denotes times of smallness and distance. And that what it means here is that what we can learn from it is, even though Hashem is hidden, God is still there with us. My eye and my heart are there, says Hashem in the book of Kings. All the days, also the days of distance, or the days of Nida. Like, if you think about our relationship with God, like the relationship between a wife and a husband. So during Nida, touching is forbidden, but seeing is permitted. you can see each other. So Hashem says, hi. Even like there's a hiddenness. We cannot touch God at this time. There's Nida. There is a fast day. The temple was destroyed. There was a siege around Jerusalem that preceded the destruction of the temple on the 10th of Tevet. But when the eyes are good, then everything is good. So it's kind of like saying everything goes according to the head. So the head of Tevet is good. That's Hanukkah. So all the days of the month of Tevet follows that goodness. Similarly, the eyes which are in the head, when there is a saying in the Talmud, when the eyes of the bride are good, then all the rest of her is good. You don't have to check too much into her if her eyes are good. And so that's what Tevet is about, like make the eye good. Turn the judgment inward. So now that moves us, that brings us to the tribe of the months, which is Dan, judgment, Din. And that's north. And north is as opposed to south. South is the place of spirituality, of wisdom. That's where the menorah in the Mishkan, in the tabernacle, and the temple would be in the south. This is all in the Talmud Baba Batra 25b. Whereas the showbread would be on the north, and the showbread represent the physical. So it says whoever wants to be wealthy should go north, meaning the north, which is also in the land of Israel. The land of Israel that is corresponding to Dan, that belongs to Dan, is in the north. The Banyo is very beautiful there because it's a land with very green and lush, lots of rain near the Golan. And that is because that's where there's physical abundance. Whereas in the south, we have the Negev, we have the desert, but we don't have so much physical abundance, but we have spiritual abundance. Lots of yeshivot and teachers and rabbis. I live in the south, which is abundant with that. So, and goodness also can be very hidden. Like north in Hebrew is tzafon, which comes from the word tzafun. Like in Pesach, we hide the matzah, tzafun, and that means hidden. So there is a pasuk in Tehillim, Ma rav tuvcha asher tzafanta lire'echa. How great is the goodness that you have hidden for those who fear you. So there is a hidden goodness in the north, but it is hidden. And so when Rachel named Bilhah's first son Dan, she recognized that Hashem has pronounced judgment upon me, but he has judged me first to find me guilty. Actually, Rachel was struggling with her own jealousy at Leah, that Leah had one son after the other while she remained barren. And so, but then she worked on that jealousy so much to the extent that she was able to completely overcome it. And that's what is explained, and Rashi explains on the naming that Rachel gave Dan, that Dan has two meanings. First, to find guilty, but also to champion one's cause. So first Hashem found me guilty, and then Hashem said, you are the winner, and now Hashem gave me also a son through Bilhah. I was first barren, and that's the judgment, but then Hashem listened to my voice. That's in that we see that Dan has the ability to be turned, the judgment of Dan can be turned from being guilty to being like the judge. That's also judgment. You have three judges that decide who's the winner. So that's another kind of judgment. That's a judgment. We want to turn the judgment of the word of the months of Tevet too.
Beautiful.
So there's a lot about Dan that's difficult. Like Dan is also on the flag of Dan, there is a snake. So the snake bites with the venom of anger, like we said, is this month. The evil eye is the eye of the snake, that which we want to transform. The rectification is the battle of holy anger against evil anger. And I want to talk a little bit more about that before we end. So it's interesting because Nachash, snake, is the exact same gematria as Mashiach.
Oh, interesting.
358. So the holy power of Dan reflects a spark of Mashiach.
Huh.
And so there's also a Zohar that teaches us that the commander-in-chief of the army of Mashiach will come from the tribe of Dan. So he will take the anger of Dan and turn it to the enemies. And that's what the anger is for. Anger, we need it. And so we also need it to be angry at our own evil inclination, like it says, Rakzu va'al techata'u, like Rakzu, which is exactly the same word as roges. Be agitated and don't sin. And David HaMelech writes that in his Tehillim. So I could share with you again. Let's see. Okay, you really did that. You figured out how to let me share the screen. So here, we're just scrolling down. Here, text number 8. Become agitated and sin not. Rigzu va'al techata'u. From Tehillim, chapter 4, verse 5. Kapitel 4, verse 5. And then it also says, which I thought was really also very beautiful and pertains very much to the months of Tevet. Imru bilvavchem al mishkafchem v'domu sela. Commune with your own heart upon your bed and be still. It's like also how you quiet that anger through meditation, like to commune with your own heart. Meditate about it. Look for the root of it. Find out how you can sweeten it and how you can transform it to use it only against the negative that we want to get rid of. And so, so how do we do that? So a few tips on that. How do we transform our anger? So
Yes.
that's the question that I'm preempting that you probably were thinking to ask, right?
Yes, that's $1 million question. Exactly. How do we turn our anger from anger to good, to productive, to make it to channel it to be productive for us?
And I think that we have a really good example of Yosef the Tzaddik.
Okay.
And we read about him in this month of Tevet, the end of his whole story. Tevet starts off with Vayigash, which is the encounter very emotional encounter between Yosef and between Yehuda and Yosef. And then we move to Vayechi. And Vayechi, that's when Yaakov passes away, and then the brothers who feel very, very guilty about what they did to Yosef. And so they come to him and they actually make up this whole story. And because they're really afraid of Yosef. They thought maybe Yosef is nice to them as long as their father's alive. But once the father is no longer, he's going to start taking revenge. He could have really been very angry at his brothers. Like, who wouldn't be? Like, they try to kill him. And then first they were going to kill him. Then they put him into a pit full of snakes and scorpions. And then they sold him in the tender age of 17 to be a slave into the most decadent of all nations, the perverted Egyptian nation. And how could he even, they sold him to assimilation. It was just because he had such a strength, inner strength, and that he was able to not only overcome the temptation for assimilation, he grew greater and stronger during it. And so the brothers say in Parshas Vayechi, please, our father said, don't get angry with your brothers, don't punish them, something like that. And then Yosef answers something very, very, very beautiful, which I want to just scroll down to my notes to find exactly what he said, because it's really very amazing how he says it. Let me just find it here. Okay, so this is what he says. Here we go. Here, I found it. It's in Bereshit, chapter 50, and it's verse 16 to 21. So this is what he said. And first they say, now Yosef will hate us and will pay us back the evil which we did him. And then Yosef answers, fear not, for am I in place of God? But as for you, you thought evil against me, but God meant it for good, to bring it to pass at this day, to save many people alive. In Hebrew, to save many people alive is lachayot amrav. And then he says, now therefore fear not, I will nourish you and your little ones. And he comforted them and he spoke kindly to them. Well, I'm just looking for the word, but lemichia, there is a word where he says, Hashem made it. It was from Hashem that I had to go down to Egypt. I could sustain you during the famine. You didn't have the best intentions. Okay, but like this had to happen. I have nothing in my heart against you because you did Hashem's will. And we'll bring it out to see how we could take that from Yosef and learn from that. But I just want to bring in that the word lemichia, Hashem sent me for sustenance for you. And you unscrabble the letters of lemichia, you get mechila, forgiveness. Yes. And that's really, Yosef is really a very great role model for forgiveness. The way he spoke and he comforted and made them feel good, don't feel bad, don't feel guilty. It's always meant to be. So like when we get angry at other people, what usually happens is like, how can you, like that. And it's really kind of idol worship. The Talmud compares anger to idol worship because we don't see that it's all from Hashem. Everybody, if they insult me, if they stop me from being able to do what I feel I have to do, or whatever they do to hurt me, to make me upset, to make me angry, to make me agitated, they're only doing it because God is making them do that. And that's what Yosef is saying. God, it was from Hashem. I'm not angry with you. Why? Because I realize it's from Hashem. And that's the clue. When we come across challenges in our life with other people, with situations, if we don't see God in it, then we get angry. And that's considered idol worship because instead of seeing God, we are making that person, that thing, that how do you say it, that obstacle, that impediment, we make it into like it is as if it has a power on its own. Right. And that's why it's like idol worship. And that's one of the reasons. There's other ones, but that's the one I choose to share with you today.
That's beautiful. It's very, very powerful. Definitely, it brings up a point. It really strikes a chord. It's true. Like in everyday life, we do get mad. People insult us. People prevent us from doing what we want to do. Or maybe there are situations. Maybe it's not a person. Maybe it's a situation that's really, really difficult for us. And regardless whether it's a person or a situation or something else, it's all Hashem. Whatever it is, it's all Hashem. And the difficulty is just remembering that. Sometimes it's hard, because we live in this world. We live in like what we see, so sometimes it's difficult to remember that it's really Hashem. But if we're able to stop for a minute and just say, wait a minute, it's not the situation, it's not the person, it's not the circumstances, it's actually Hashem, then maybe we can calm down for a few minutes and just take a deep breath and then figure out what to do with a clear head.
That's beautiful. Yeah, because otherwise anger is compared to the snake. Like we said, that's also done. And the snake basically takes over. When a person gets angry, their own soul leaves them and instead comes like a snake soul. And then that's when they will do things that they later will really regret. And that's another reason why it's idol worship. It's like their soul is not there.
Right.
In any case, so it's easier said than done. This is one of the hardest things. This is, like Sheva Yipol Tzadik V'kam. A tzaddik falls 7 times and get himself back up. Like it's, we have to know when we don't always know why Hashem gave what he gave. Like Yosef knew, okay, it was clear why I had to go to Egypt. Well, now it became clear. It wasn't clear when he was in prison.
Right.
and I'm sure even when he was in prison, he already had forgiven his brothers.
Yes.
But and a lot of times when you're in the middle of something, you don't understand, why is Hashem doing that to me? It's not fair.
Right.
But later, with hindsight, you could see a pattern of why it had to happen. And we can always ask ourselves, what is the midah that I can perfect? What is the character that I can work on in this situation now? Like, how is it helping me? And we see, and we have to really stop and take a deep breath. That's number one. When we get angry, they have that thing, count to 10 or count to whatever many you want to count to.
Yes.
A time out.
Yes.
That is really important. Just relax, take a deep breath, like we saw in Tehillim, V'tomu Selah, be still, be quiet, Selah, just like stop. When you're angry, don't do anything. Don't talk to other people. Like, if I, sometimes things happen. I'm a director of a school, Midreshet B'erot Bat Ayin, and it's sometimes people or students or things that happen makes me angry. So I have to do something. I have to, make sanctions sometimes, but I know I wait so that it passes, that emotion.
Right.
When you are, and I remember I once had a student who I don't have a tendency so much to get so angry, but I had a student like that, and it was a very big problem. And she said, but these people are doing this and this and this, and what should I do? What should I do when I do this and this and this and this? And I said, nothing. Take a deep breath. But what should I say? I said, nothing. You cannot say or do or anything when you are in this state of anger.
Right.
Anything you're going to say is going to boomerang. It's going to backfire and make it worse.
100%.
Say anything when you're angry to anyone. If you need to, write. Don't send the email, okay? Don't send the email that you wrote when you were angry, but you could sit and write. Don't write it in an email. Write it on Word or something else with your hands. So
Right, just to get it out. Yeah.
Some people it's good for some people.
Yes.
And then you can make a ritual and burn it.
Right.
So
exactly.
rid of that. I got rid of it.
Yes.
When I was going through many hardships, I write a whole journal.
Right.
But then it's not good to keep it. You don't want to hold the grudge.
No.
Get rid of it. Okay, so I see we're going towards the end. So I want to, so I think we have, we could talk for a whole year about tips on how to deal with anger. I actually I do spiritual healing, and I have a course coming up where I'm going to also teach in it, anger management according to the Torah, and forgiveness, and other topics in the course coming up in about 3 weeks' time. So you will stay tuned. If anyone would like to also be on a weekly email list, they can email me. You have my email. If you don't mind, also put that email on there. And then every week I write something for the Parsha. I did it for so many years, and you get everything. Also about the months. Every month there's 4 articles about the Parsha. Every week every month. About the months. I'm getting nervous because I'm getting agitated because I know I have to end now. And I always do that. Sorry.
Well, thank you so much. Really, thank you so much, Rebbetzin.
But I'm not finished. I didn't want to go to my ending. That is not. So in any case, so email me and I'll let you know about everything that I'm doing here. So I just want to go to the end. So I'm skipping about 5 or 6 pages. And I do have my conclusion because that's very important. Just a little recap. So the month of Tevet is about taking the light of Kislev and bring it into the very lowest, most physical antithesis to holiness. And that is really, when we're able to do that, that's even greater. When you could take something high and bring it down to low. That's what Hashem wants, that we make for him a downstairs apartment, a dira b'tachtonim. And also, if you look at the shape of the letter Ayin, so it points towards, it points backwards. You have one of the leg of Ayin, that the main leg points backwards to Kislev, but I'm sorry, the upper right receives from the past, from Kislev, where it extends its leg into the opposite direction, into the future, into Tevet. So it's the letter that has a strong base below the line, the organ of the liver, which controls the lowest, most physical part of our being, and which is also associated with digestion and sexuality. And that's also, by the way, why Esther was taken in the months of Tevet to Achashverosh, because Hashem wanted that he would choose her, because that's the months where the body enjoys another body. It's all written in the Gemara Megillah. So Tevet is the time to enlighten the most darkest places, including like our own negative emotions of anger. And so it's the time that we have the ability to transform physical enjoyments into enjoyments for holiness. And we're not an ascetic religion. We don't believe that you just have to go and meditate on a mountain. We're about eating and drinking for the sake of Hashem. And the trait of anger is one of the worst emotions possible, yet when its energy is challenged towards becoming angry only at the evil, it can really turn us towards all the good that the name of Tevet indicates. And that is especially through developing a good eye, the letter of the months, and to convey Torah into the 70 languages of the gematria of Ayin, the letter. And so that way we can infuse all the dark places with the light of Hanukkah. And so according to how much we expel the evil through the character of anger and fear of God, we can transform the darkest places into the holiest light. So that's kind of a recap of what we learned today. And thank you very much for inviting me, Vera.
My pleasure.
I'm happy if we could work something out. I could do this every month. I have already the classes made, if you want.
Thank you. No, it's definitely something to consider. And I appreciate that because this is such an important topic. It really, really is. The energy of the Hebrew months, the power of the Hebrew months. It's very, very important. So thank you. We'll be in touch about that. Thank you.
Okay, be very well. And Chodesh Tov and Mevurach and Chanukah Tzameach.
Thank you so much. And for you too. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.